If you would have asked me a year ago where I would have thought Harold Landry from Boston College was going to end up in the 2018 draft, I probably would have felt it was pretty safe money to think he was a top 10 pick. Because this was a guy in his junior year at Boston College, had a massive amount of production, playing a premier position as a pass rusher and edge rusher. Looking at it, I'm like, this dude probably ends up top 10, no worse than a top 15 pick. Well, the 2017 season happened. He had an ankle injury. He missed like 5 games. He didn't look nearly as explosive in 2017. He just didn't look like the same player. His productivity was way down. So his draft stock, it felt like, took a bit of a hit. And then he gets to the combine. He looks really smooth and really fluid and as athletic as I've ever seen him. And it feels like he has rehabbed his draft stock somewhat. Now, I still thought that it was going to be one of these things where I would watch Harold Landry and I would say, you know what? Yeah, the 2017 season wasn't as productive. Yeah, he had an injury that he battled through. But I still see a guy with high-end upside as an edge rusher, a guy that I feel like might get underdrafted, but where he does get drafted, he's going to vastly outplay his draft position. That's still kind of what I thought a little while back. But after having studied him now, I'm not so sure. Now look, he's got good size as an edge rusher. Somebody you play in a 3-4, you play as your nickel dime edge rusher. He's 6'3", about 250, 255 pounds. So he's got decent size, decent length, 33-inch arms. So he doesn't have short stubbles sitting there flopping around T-Rexing. So good size. Really good quickness and burst. Really good quickness and burst. You saw that at the combine with his 10-yard split in the 40 being 1.59 seconds. Like, that's great. That's an outstanding number. That means that guy can explode off of the ball and he can get up to top speed very quickly. You also saw his athleticism, his hip flexibility, his body control, his quickness of feet in his 3-cone drill when he went 6.88. And that's what you look at a 3-cone drill at for something like that. Can a guy dip? Does he have flexibility in his hips? Can he naturally bend? Is he agile? That's what something like that measures. So I thought Harold Landry did really well for himself at the combine. He was clearly one of the stars there, especially amongst all the defensive players, especially amongst the edge rushers, the defensive linemen. And you watch him on film, even though you didn't see it as much in 2017 compared to 2016, you do see a guy that can get low with his pad level, as the 3-cone drill might suggest he would be able to do. He can dip his shoulder. He can bend the edge. For a guy that 250 pounds, he's got some nice bull rush ability, especially when he gets on the outside tackle or on the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle. He's a guy that can dip his shoulder in and he can drive somebody back off of their spot, which you wouldn't always think of out of a 250-pound guy. So he's got some nice natural pass rush ability. He plays hard. I felt like he pretty consistently brought it to the table. He's a relatively sound tackler. Typically does a good job of finishing when he gets to the quarterback. Because, again, it's one thing to get pressure on the quarterback, and that can be incredibly disruptive. But you can still get a ton of pressure on a quarterback consistently and still get your ass ate alive. At some point in time, you want to bring the dude down because those are momentum plays. Pressure is nice. Sacks end drives. Sacks cause turnovers. It's not always a guarantee that getting pressure is going to do that. It can and sometimes does, but if you're going up against certain types of quarterbacks, they know how to adjust and they can perform, if not thrive, with constant pressure in their face. But you start hitting him, getting him to the ground, sacking him, it could change the entire momentum of a game. So he's pretty good at finishing. But there was more concern there than I thought there was going to be with Landry's game. Like, as a pass rusher, I didn't see a guy that was really well refined. I didn't see a guy that had incredible hand usage. I didn't see a guy that had a variety of pass rush moves. He could definitely use some refinement there. Coverage ability, I don't really know what his coverage upside is. He's a fluid athlete. He's a decent athlete. But is that ultimately where he's going to be natural? Is that ultimately how you want to deploy Landry a lot? I don't know. And as a result, when you're talking about playing outside linebacker, you're going to want these guys that can guard the running backs, that can defend against tight ends, in a pinch, defend against slot wide receivers. And I'm not sure if that's going to be his natural thing, and I'm not going to be sure in the NFL if he really brings that to the table. I'm not sure. And then when I look at edge rushers, like last year, I disregarded T.J. Watt's hands. He had a great hand punch. He was violent with them. He had a purpose with them. He struck well with them. He was really good with the chicken fight after the initial punch, and he would get the blocker would disengage from him, and he would be able to get back on it. I disregarded that some. Landry does not have a great hand punch. And when I think about edge rushers, at some point in time, you're not going to be able to win just with speed on the outside. And honestly, Landry didn't win with that nearly enough at Boston College to suggest that that is such a raging strong suit for him in the NFL. Another massive concern I have about him is he was consistently laid off the snap in 2017. It really frustrates me when a guy is on the ball, at the line, and they are consistently late, especially when they would, in theory, based off of their combine testing numbers, be a relatively explosive athlete. You want those guys to be able to time the snap well, because a guy like Landry at 250 pounds with that type of explosive initial burst and quickness should be able to get around offensive tackles several times a game just off of that, or start off outside and go with some type of inside counter move and be perhaps even more deadly. But he was so damn consistently late off the ball that it really worries me that he's not going to be able to use that athleticism advantage on the outside. His play recognition is inconsistent. At times he was good recognizing what was going on, and other times he looked completely lost. And then when you factor in that he's a pretty substandard run defender, he pursues well, he plays with good consistent effort and motor in pursuit, but he gets engulfed when he tries to set the edge. He can lose contain by not understanding the situation and trying to crash the line too damn hard. And you see this against option plays, especially in 2017. He would crash towards the inside of the line, and guys would just go around him. They would run right where he was, but now he's not. He was just bad. He can be late to react to the run. He can get bit pretty badly by play action. And just in general, again, is not a good run defender. I know ultimately when you're talking about taking somebody that projects as somebody like a 3-4 edge rusher like Landry, first and foremost, you want a guy that can get after the quarterback. And I get that, and I agree with that. But if you want them to be a base defender as well, you want them to be a 3-4 down player, and you want them to become a star or a superstar, you would like at some point in time, if they're not going to be studly against a run, at least to be adequate to where any gains that they give you as an edge rusher are instantly negated by the weakness of what they are as a run defender. And that's kind of what it feels like we're at with Harold Landry. He might give you some upside as an edge rusher, but he's such a deficiency in the running game that it balances itself out. I still fundamentally think that Landry can be a productive edge rusher in the NFL. He's not as far refined or far along in his progression as a talent as I thought he was going to be, or I thought he was, so there is still work there. I get concerned when I start thinking about guys, what's really their upside in coverage. They're not the most instinctual and aware football player, and then they are pretty much one-dimensional because they are a big liability against the run. So I've got a first to second round type of grade on him on my big board. He will be in the first to second round range. To me, if a team takes him in the top 10, I think they're reaching by a little bit. Like, to me, Harold Landry feels more like a guy you should take somewhere between picks 20 to 30. Not somebody you should be talking about taking somewhere between pick 10 to 19. I just don't know if that elite upside is in there, and I just don't know if he's a well-rounded enough player to where you could consistently count on him from day one to play all 3 or 4 downs. He might come into the league the first year or two and be a situational edge rusher, and even then, I'm not sure how truly great of a situational edge rusher he could be.